So this is a really messed up story, man, and this is something that I see a lot in Chicago. I mean, not this particular plot twist that we have right here, but this kind of stuff with ex-girlfriends, ex-boyfriends, and stuff, and this leading to a lot of violence, unfortunately. And a lot of times when you hear people in the media break down why the violence is going on, most common reason that I hear them referred to is like they're fighting over drug turf. That's probably the least common reason. It's a lot of stuff like this. So prosecutors say the Chicago man broke into his ex-girlfriend's home intending to kill her as she slept, but he mistakenly killed a 17-year-old girl who happened to be staying in the woman's home. After botching the hit, and this is according to CWB Chicago, Stephen Goodman allegedly tried to hire somebody to kill his ex-girlfriend for him. So the judge said the only appropriate bail is no bail, and this guy's 37, and so he is not getting any bail. So the prosecutor explained that his longtime girlfriend, who's the mother of his 4 kids, broke up with him early this year, sparking a series of incidents in which he repeatedly let himself into the woman's apartment using a spare key. Now, here's the thing. If your ex, if the guy that you're breaking up with has a key, you have to change the locks on the apartment and preferably move, okay? I'm going to tell you something, ladies. This is something that I don't know if women feel the same way, okay? But like I explained in my video on the SD, there's a whole long discourse on the psychology of romance that I can go into behind this, and I'm not gonna go into all that again because I've already done that in numerous videos, but I'll summarize it here for the sake of making this point. Romance, psychologically, when you break it down, is 100% and completely egotistical and selfish. Okay, it may have the appearance or the facade of unselfishness as far as doing nice things for the other person, but that's only to maintain the other person's affections. The core motivations are all selfish, and the feedback, or I don't know what you would call it, the positive motivation behind a lot of the actions that people take in the midst of a romance is so that one can obtain egotistical gratification. When you suddenly cut off that egotistical gratification, it's like cutting a drug addict off from his supply, okay? And the person will literally go into withdrawal. And I mean, there are actual hormonal and chemical changes that will take place in a person's body, okay, when the endorphins and whatever else was being released as a response to interacting with their lover suddenly stop, okay? So that is a dangerous thing to do, even with people that aren't in the streets, even with people that are not gang members. The fact that this kind of thing is so common, and I mean like coming to harm somebody's ex, who they supposedly just were telling that they love them, okay, which was never really true because they were confusing love with sexual attraction. That's a dangerous thing to do, and it's a dangerous situation to put oneself in, but you have no choice because there's times when you have to break up with people, but you have to treat that, okay, like it's the potential danger that it is. I see this happening quite frequently. And guys who have no history of violence, nothing to do, once they're suddenly sent on that emotional roller coaster, on the downward plunge, they turn violent. Okay, so move if you can and don't let him know, the new location. Change the locks. Should you have to do that? No. Okay, he should be able to control his emotions. But you can't, act like the world is the way that it should be. So this is particularly to women, but I mean, this advice really can go both ways because women can feel the same way, and they can get somebody to, to come through and do it for them or do it themselves, So you gotta be careful about that. But anyways, she eventually did get an order of protection, scared by his behavior, and that's not enough. Okay, but anyway, she started sleeping at a neighbor's home. Okay, now on February 28th, the night before Goodman and the woman were scheduled to appear in court via Zoom to address the order of protection, the woman's 17-year-old niece, whose name was Deshawnay, asked to stay at her home. The woman agreed to let Deshawnay sleep in her apartment, explaining that she was still sleeping at the neighbor's due to this other guy's conduct. Okay, so at about 3:34 a.m. the next day, the woman was awakened by gunshots, but she brushed it off as thunder. Went back to sleep, so during the Zoom hearing hours later, the woman became concerned because she had not heard from Deshawnay, so she went to her apartment to check on her. She found the girl lying behind the door of her bedroom with a gunshot wound to her head. Deshawnay was hospitalized and succumbed to her injuries on March 11th, 2 days after her 18th birthday. So Deshawnay was a high school senior and had performed 6 times at the Bud Billiken parade. So investigators learned that Goodman's car had broken down sometime before the shooting, and he had been getting around in a delivery truck that was borrowed from his employer And she said that the truck's GPS showed that it left Goodman's home shortly before the murder, stopped about a block from his ex's apartment around 3 a.m., and then left the area after the shooting. Somebody covered up a video camera inside the truck, but microphones recorded his voice inside the vehicle a couple of hours after the shooting. So on June 25th, an Illinois state trooper pulled Goodman over for speeding and found a loaded handgun under his driver's seat. Prosecutors charged him with unlawful use of a weapon, and police sent the gun for forensic testing. Those tests showed, quote, a high correlation between the weapon and shell casings found at the murder scene. So after losing the gun to the state trooper, Goodman began looking for another one. He contacted an acquaintance and repeatedly asked for help getting a gun. So eventually Goodman offered to pay the acquaintance to kill his ex for him, saying that she was, quote, effing up his life and he needed to get rid of her. So anyways, the cops eventually arrested him. The assistant public defender represented Goodman during his hearing, argued that while prosecutors said the video showed Goodman at his ex's home multiple times in the weeks before the murder, they did not say that he was on video at her home on the day of the murder. So she said that he has 8 kids, and he's the sole caretaker for 3 of them, and coaches their youth sports teams. So he's involved in his kids' lives. I don't know exactly what he meant by, she was effing up his life.
Okay, so how do you do this safely without getting yourself whacked? Okay, well, there's a few things, man, and I'll give you guys some real life examples from stuff that I've had to do because this can be a really dangerous situation, man. So the first thing you do, you got to make them not want you. And this, you might have to do some stuff that's kind of embarrassing, but it's worth it because it's better to be embarrassed than to be dead, right? So there was a time, like I'll give you an example. When I was working at Mather High School, like as a intern or whatever, like student teacher. Okay, there was a girl in the class. She was an Assyrian girl, and any of you guys who were in my class, because I know I got some people who were in my class back then. If you know who I'm talking about, do not say her name in the comment section, man, please. So I'll just say, it started with a V. I'll say Vanessa. Okay. So her friends, like I was about 22, I was like 21, 22 at the time, and she was probably about 17. Okay, so because it was like juniors and seniors, so she was probably about 17. Her friends started telling me like so and so, she likes you. You know what I'm saying? She was making that known to me too. So, she was a student in my class. I was in college at the time. Like there was nothing I could do. I couldn't do it. But I'm gonna be honest with you guys. The girl was fine. I mean, I liked her too, but there was nothing I could do. She was a student in the class, so the thing was she had like this other dude she was involved with, like a boyfriend. So I just kept on bringing that up. Like you're with this other guy, right? That's going to be a messed up situation because you're with him. You're trying to get with me, and I just kept on bringing that up and just use that. You know what I'm saying as like an excuse. You don't want to tell the person that like you don't like them or whatever, which wasn't true in that case anyways, because I did like her, but you don't want to say that because what I'm saying then you're gonna that hurt or whatever. That's what's gonna drive that person to do some crazy stuff. So I just told her, you got this other guy. So I put it on her. Like, you break up with him, then we can talk about it. Well, okay, are they going to be willing to do that? You know what I'm saying? So you just bring up something like that. There was another time, this was on this channel. This was actually like about a year and a half ago. There was a woman, she had hit me up in the email first. She was asking me some questions about some of the stuff that had been going on, like in Chicago or whatever. Questions about information I put out in videos, stuff like that. She asked me if I had an Instagram. At that time, I didn't have one. This was like right after that whole stuff had happened with the court. So I came back, started a little Instagram, which I deleted again. But I, eventually gave her the Instagram. She started messaging me on there. She was saying some stuff that, I kind of got the vibe like she was kind of interested or whatever. This is after I like just came back and did the interview with Truth Teller. One thing I'll just say too about this woman, she was like a mixed black woman. She was like maybe Dominican or something like that. This was one of the finest women I've ever seen in my life, man. I couldn't believe she was actually reaching out to me because she was honestly way out of my league. I mean, way out of my league. So I couldn't believe it. But she's messaging me. I'm getting vibes or whatever. And she asked me what my story was. But as we continue to talk, like she was really cool, really smart, really nice. But as we continued to talk, though, it became apparent to me that she had some stuff going on. I don't want to put her business out there and say too much, but I'll just say I don't think it would have worked. You know what I'm saying? Like she had some. I don't want to say too much about it, man. She had some stuff going on that like the values didn't match up. It wasn't really going to work out. I didn't see a future in it with what she was doing. Okay, like at the time. So I don't know if she's still doing it now, but I don't think it would have worked. So, anyways, I didn't want to, reject her though. So I put up a picture on Instagram, started talking about like the stuff I had going on, and I started saying like, man, since I've been back down, man, I've been so broke. Like I got no money. I kept on emphasizing how broke I am. Like, man, it's messed up out here. It's so hard, man. Like, dudes and dudes left me hanging. I'm just like totally penniless. I just kept on saying that over and over again. And so after that, you know, she was messaging a little bit more. I don't know if that was what did it, but I also let her know I was like, with the stuff that she was doing and telling me about, I was like, I don't really rock with that, and not saying anything about her specifically, but I was like, I don't judge anybody. Whatever anybody else chooses to do with their life is their business. I'm not better than anybody else. I'm not anybody's dad. I can't tell them what to do. So I'm not passing judgment on anybody. But that's just not something I'm really. I don't really rock with that stuff. So I let her know about that. Let her know, what I had going on with the system, and how that's just draining everything from me. So after that, the messages kind of stopped. You see what I'm saying? I didn't just tell her like, this ain't gonna work out. Like I don't, I'm not feeling you or whatever. Like I didn't tell her stuff like that, because you don't want to let them down too hard, man. You got to find a reason to make them not want you, and to soften the blow. That's the biggest. That's the biggest key, man. Because this is like, that can be an emotionally like devastating thing for a person, especially if you've been with the person for a long time. These weren't people that I had been with, like, but this is just like basically telling somebody no from the get go. But I mean, like, if you've been with a person for a long time, you got to let them down easy, man, because it's between, giving them the heartbreak of being rejected, or basically giving them a sense of relief they just dodged a bullet. You know what I'm saying? So that's something that's gonna probably make them feel even better. So go with the second one. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying be fake or whatever, or do something deliberately, but I mean, if you're a guy, this is easy because just be yourself. You know what I'm saying? Do what you would do when they're not around. Belch, fart, pick your nose, do whatever you got to do, and just basically make them break up with you. Is what I'm saying, and let them know whatever you got to let them know, and you got to be willing to take some embarrassment, man. Don't let that pride get in the way, because the pride will get you killed, and that's what you're dealing with them too. You're dealing with their pride, so you gotta be careful how you let that down. So that's my advice, man. I don't know what it was with this guy, if this was his motivations or if it was something else. He said that she was effing up his life, so I don't know what that meant. It may have been something else other than that, but I'm just saying in general, man, because I see this type of stuff all the time. So guys, be smooth out there, man, and be smart. It's your boy, Chicago News. I'm out.